She was laughing. Loudly. Louder than I'd heard her laugh in months. The kind of laugh where her voice cracks and she covers her mouth like she's embarrassed to enjoy herself that much. I hadn't heard that sound in our bedroom, in our kitchen, not even during her favorite dumb reality shows. But now it echoed from the living room, surrounded by soft jazz, red wine, and two of her friends. When I stepped into the hallway, the laughter stopped. She didn't know I was back yet. I was supposed to be at the store. I'd forgotten the oat milk she likes, so I doubled back. The bag was still in my hand when her friend Trina said, "Imogene, your husband is seriously handsome. Like, annoyingly handsome." Another short laugh. Not hers. Then silence. I took one step forward. Imogene's voice came next. "Please don't say that." Her tone? Not playful. Not joking. Not grateful. Sharp. Possessive. Nervous. And when I walked in, grocery bag still swinging from my fingers, she looked at me like I was the last person she expected to see. Her spine went straight, her cheeks flushed, and she moved a pillow over her lap like I'd caught her in something indecent. "Hey," I said casual. "Forgot your milk." No answer. Just eyes darting to her friend, then to me, then to the wine bottle, which was already half empty. Trina smiled. "We were just talking about you." I nodded. "Heard that." Imogene's jaw tightened. Her hands gripped the pillow. Whitney tried to steer the conversation elsewhere, but Imogene cut her off. "You shouldn't say things like that about other people's husbands." It dropped like a blade on glass. Trina blinked. It was a compliment. Imogene didn't respond. I stood there, holding the milk, feeling like I'd walked into a crime scene where I was both the victim and the suspect. And later that night, while she was in the shower, I checked the laundry basket for her workout clothes. They smelled like cologne. Not mine. I didn't confront her that night. I lay in bed next to her, pretending to scroll through my phone while my heart pounded like it was trying to climb out of my chest. She was humming to herself in the bathroom, like she hadn't just scolded her friend for noticing me, like I hadn't just found someone else's scent on her clothes. Not perfume, not sweat. It was him, whoever he was. The next morning, she was up early. She made coffee, toast, and even peeled my banana for me, placing it on a napkin with a tiny, curved smile I hadn't seen in months. It was the kind of smile you give to a pet you're about to give away. Sweet. Guilty. Practiced. "You seemed quiet last night," she said, not looking at me. I shrugged. "Long day." She nodded. No follow-up. No questions. She used to ask questions. Now she filled the silence with noise, headphones, podcasts, calls with people I never got to meet. Every day, she seemed to talk to everyone except me. But that day, I couldn't stop watching her. Her phone was face down all morning, which wasn't like her. She'd even turned off notifications. She said it was for her mental clarity, but I knew better. You don't hide what you're not afraid of someone seeing. I waited until she went for her Sunday yoga class. She always left her tablet on the nightstand, syncing it with her phone. She thinks I don't understand tech. She forgets I spent 3 years fixing cracked iPads and malware-ridden laptops at a repair shop before my insurance job. I opened her iMessages. Most of it was clean, surface level. Talking to Whitney, her mom, even me. But under her archived folders, I found a name I didn't recognize. Dax. Just Dax. No last name. No profile photo. The messages weren't frequent. They were strategic. Always during the hours I was at work. Always short. Precise. "Dax, that was risky." She noticed. "Imogene, she won't say anything." I covered it. "Dax, you're sure?" "Imogene, she thinks it's about him." Perfect, right? She thinks it's about me? I froze. I reread that message 5 times. My ears were ringing. For a second, I forgot where I was. Forgot I was sitting in my own house, on my own bed, with a mug of cold coffee next to me. What were they hiding? Who was she? And why was I the perfect excuse? I didn't take screenshots. I didn't forward anything. I just sat there, gripping the sides of the bed like it was about to fall apart. When she came home, I was in the kitchen, pretending to read emails. She walked in, kissed the back of my head, and said, "You're being sweet today." I looked up at her, forced a smile, and said, "You always look good after yoga." She laughed, but her eyes didn't. I didn't sleep that night. I stared at the ceiling for hours, replaying her message to Dax in my head. She thinks it's about him. Perfect, right? I wasn't even the problem. I was the cover. The misdirection. I was the dumb husband too oblivious to notice he was being used to keep someone else quiet. The worst part? I didn't even know who she was. Not Trina. Not Whitney. Someone else. Someone who could blow it all open. And instead of confronting her, instead of flipping the whole damn table, I did what I always do. I smiled, nodded, and played along. Because some pathetic part of me still thought, if I just wait this out, maybe she'll come back to me. But the more I watched her, the more obvious it became. She started overcorrecting, playing the role of the doting wife, hugging me when I walked through the door, making my lunch like she used to, texting me sweet nothings in the afternoon. But I knew her rhythm. I knew her patterns. It wasn't affection. It was cleanup. She wasn't with me. She was managing me. The following Thursday, she had a girls' dinner again, this time at some wine bar across town. I offered to drop her off. She said no, said she was carpooling with Whitney, who had already picked her up. But her shoes were still by the door. And her coat, the one she always wears on nights out, wasn't gone when I came home from work. The closet was still open, half empty like she'd rushed to get ready after I left. So I waited. Sat in the dark, no lights on, just my phone and the hum of the fridge. At 9:46 p.m., her location pinged at a restaurant not near the wine bar. Not even close. She must have forgotten I could still see her find my alerts. She turned them off 30 minutes later. But not before I screenshotted it. At 1:12 a.m., she came home. Quiet. Smelling like smoked bourbon and something musky that wasn't her perfume. She crept in, thinking I was asleep, tiptoed to the bathroom, and then slid into bed like nothing had happened. I didn't move. Just listened to her breathing. Steady. Practiced. The next day, I called in sick and drove to that restaurant. I asked to see the reservation list from the night before. Said I left my wallet. The hostess hesitated. I showed her the location screenshot. I asked if a woman named Imogene had been there. She hadn't. But Dax had. And he wasn't alone. Sorry, the hostess said. We don't usually share this stuff, but they made kind of a scene last night. She was crying in the hallway. He looked pissed. She left early. Said she needed to talk to someone before it all fell apart. Before what fell apart? The hostess leaned closer. She said the wrong person knew something. That it was getting out. I thanked her and left. I sat in my car for almost 20 minutes before I could even start the engine. My wife had spent the last few months slowly pulling away from me, not because she didn't love me, but because she'd already left me. Emotionally, strategically, she wasn't planning on fixing us. She was planning her exit. And now someone, whoever she was threatening to light the match. So I did the only thing I could think of. I texted Dax. She knows I know. We need to talk. And he replied, "Who is this?" I sent a photo of our wedding. No words. Just her hand in mine, smiling in a white dress. He didn't reply after that. But 30 minutes later, I got a call from an unknown number. And when I answered, it wasn't Dax. It was her. I almost didn't answer. Unknown numbers usually meant telemarketers or bad news. But something about the timing, the silence after I sent that photo, the sudden shift in energy, made me pick up. Hello. There was a pause. A soft breath. Then a woman's voice I didn't recognize. Calm, steady, not imaging. You don't know me, she said. But I know your wife. I gripped the steering wheel tighter, though I was parked. Who is this? She's been using you, the woman said, skipping right past introductions. To keep me quiet. But I'm done playing along. My chest went cold. It was her. The she in the messages. The reason Imogene had been pretending. The one who knew the secret. What's your name? I asked. A long pause. Then, call me Syra. That wasn't helpful. Probably not even her real name. But she didn't wait for permission to keep going. She and Dax have been sneaking around for months. He's my brother. I blinked. Your brother? I introduced them. She continued, like she was confessing to a crime. I thought she was interesting. Sharp. Intense. She made us all feel like we mattered. I didn't know she was using that charm to get into his bed. I swallowed. My throat was dry. Syra didn't stop. She knew I'd found out. That's why she started pulling you closer again. You're her escape plan. The clean exit. You're the marriage card she can still play when it all explodes. I didn't want to believe it, but I already did. Every puzzle piece was fitting perfectly, and it made me sick. Why are you telling me this now? I asked. She hesitated. Because you sent that picture. The wedding one. And I realized you're not her puppet. You're just caught in her show. Like the rest of us. Then she said something that made my stomach drop. She's planning to leave you in 6 weeks. She has a whole story prepared. Therapy. We grew apart. She wants it to look mutual, but it's not. It's scripted. I sat in stunned silence. 6 weeks. That lined up with everything. Her recent reconnection phase, the fake affection, the suddenly thoughtful gestures. She wasn't trying to fix anything. She was buying time, building the narrative. Syra gave me a date, a location, and said, they'll be together again next Friday. They think I don't know. You can see it for yourself. But if you show up, don't confront them. Just watch. Then she hung up. I sat there for what felt like an hour. No music, no movement, just the sound of my pulse in my ears and the taste of betrayal on my tongue. That night, I came home to Imogene already in bed. She'd lit a candle. Vanilla like always. She looked up and smiled like she hadn't destroyed me without ever lifting a finger. Where were you? She asked. I kissed her forehead and said, just clearing my head. And she believed me. Because to her, I was still harmless. Still hers. But I had 7 days now. 7 days to plan what I'd do when I saw them together. And this time, I wasn't going to stay quiet. The strange thing is how easily you can fake normal when your entire world is cracking underneath you. The next morning, I made her breakfast, scrambled eggs, just like she likes them, with spinach folded in at the last second. I even made her coffee with the frother she bought last year. She walked into the kitchen in her robe, kissed my cheek like everything was fine, and said, "You're being sweet again." I smiled. Inside, I was unraveling. But not in the loud, messy way. No shouting. No accusations. I'd done enough of the emotional begging in my head over the last few weeks to last a lifetime. This was different. This was cold. Clinical. Calculating. Because now I had a date. A time. A place. I wasn't spinning in a fog of confusion anymore. I had direction. She was planning to leave me in 6 weeks. But next Friday, she was going to meet Dax again. And I would be there too. That week was one of the longest of my life. I played my role perfectly. I went to work, came home on time, asked about her day, gave her space when she wanted it, attention when she expected it. I even watched a documentary with her about migratory birds, pretending to care as she leaned her head on my shoulder. She thought I was getting softer, that I was settling in, making peace with our new, fake closeness. But in my mind, I was rewinding every scene of our life together, looking for red flags I'd missed, conversations that suddenly had new meaning, nights she came home late, trips she took with Whitney that never lined up with Whitney's Instagram posts. Even her favorite necklace, the one she claimed I bought her on our 3rd anniversary, I never did. I thought my memory was just fading. It wasn't. She was rewriting our history, one detail at a time. I started digging deeper. I checked old credit card statements, found restaurant charges in neighborhoods I'd never been to, found Uber rides that started near our house, but ended nowhere near where she said she'd be. I followed the digital breadcrumbs like I was solving someone else's mystery. Because the version of her I knew couldn't have done this. That version was gone. And on Thursday night, while she showered, I opened her tablet again. I expected to find messages between her and Dax, maybe something confirming the Friday meetup. But what I found was worse. She had a folder in her notes app, titled Exit Strategy. It was meticulous. Dates, talking points, a list of ways to emotionally distance without triggering confrontation. She was keeping notes like I was a project, a risk she had to mitigate. Phase 1, increase affection slightly to reduce suspicion. Phase 2, begin solo therapy, discuss disconnect. Phase 3, offer separation with grace. Emphasize no one is to blame. No one is to blame? She was rehearsing the moment she'd leave me like it was a TED Talk. I took pictures of every screen. Then I put everything back. When she stepped out of the bathroom, wrapped in a towel, smiling and relaxed, she said, "You look like you've seen a ghost." I kissed her forehead. Just tired. And I meant it. Because nothing inside me felt alive anymore. But that was about to change. Tomorrow was Friday. And she was going to meet him again. And for the first time in our entire marriage, I was going to watch her lie in real time. Friday came with rain. Not the cinematic kind. Either, just cold, wet, gray drizzle that blurred everything like a smudged memory. She stood by the window that morning with her coffee, wrapped in her favorite gray sweater, watching the street as if it were a painting she couldn't quite interpret. When she turned to me, she smiled with something rehearsed behind her eyes. "Whitney wants to meet at the spa," she said casually, like it had been planned forever. "Girls' Day?" We'll probably get lunch after. I nodded slowly, every muscle in my face under control. Have fun. She left around 10:40 a.m. Dressed too well for a spa. Black jeans, leather jacket, and makeup she hadn't worn in weeks. I waited exactly 12 minutes after she pulled out of the driveway before I followed. She didn't go to the spa. She didn't even go in the same direction. Her car turned off the main road and headed toward the old part of town, near the abandoned train station where a few overpriced bars and private clubs had popped up in the last couple of years. A perfect place for someone trying not to be seen. I trailed 3 cars behind, never directly behind her. She parked behind a wine bistro with no signage, the kind of place that didn't advertise because everyone who needed to know already knew. I stayed in my car. From where I sat, I could see the entrance and just barely the booth near the window. She went in alone. He joined her 8 minutes later. Dax, the man who'd been whispering in the dark corners of her life for months. I didn't know what I expected him to look like. I'd imagined someone taller, louder, sharper. But he looked normal. Too normal. Like the kind of guy who'd help you move a couch and flirt with your wife while she poured lemonade. He sat across from her like they'd done it 100 times before. No nerves. No hesitation. And her? She looked alive. Animated. Smiling with her whole face. Leaning forward. Touching his wrist when she laughed. She hadn't touched me like that in a year. Maybe more. And she wasn't wearing her wedding ring. I checked 3 times just to be sure. I couldn't hear them, but I didn't need to. She was glowing. Her posture was different. She wasn't checking the door. She wasn't hiding. She was with him, and for the first time in weeks, she wasn't performing. She was being real. With someone else. For the next 45 minutes, I sat there in silence, watching the woman I married slowly become a stranger I couldn't reach. There was no dramatic kiss. No obvious betrayal I could capture in a photo. But the way she looked at him, that was worse. She looked at him like she belonged there. At one point, he reached into his coat and pulled out something small, maybe a key, maybe a ring, maybe just a folded piece of paper, and slid it across the table. She didn't touch it right away. She just stared at it. Then she nodded. Something passed between them in that moment, something final. I felt it in my chest like a quiet explosion. When they stood to leave, they hugged. Nothing dramatic. But her head lingered near his shoulder for just 1 second too long. Then she turned and walked out. Not back to her car. Into a rideshare. Leaving hers behind. Dax left 3 minutes later. She didn't go home. Not for hours. I sat there waiting, the rain turning to mist on my windshield. At 4:27 p.m., she returned. This time on foot. Unlocked her car and drove off like nothing had happened. When she walked into the house that evening, she dropped her keys into the bowl by the door, kissed me on the cheek, and said, "Spa day was nice. I missed you." I turned to her slowly, and I smiled, because now I knew everything I needed to. The next morning, she was quieter. Not silent, not defensive, just quieter, measured, like she was trying to walk across a frozen lake and wasn't sure where the cracks were. She smiled, made coffee, even folded the laundry I left in the dryer. But her voice had that fake lightness to it, the kind you use when you're trying to convince yourself you're still in control. I didn't say anything. That was the beginning of it, the silence. I wasn't giving her the usual cues anymore. No small talk. No tired husband jokes. No forehead kisses while passing in the hall. And instead of feeling relieved by my distance, she started to panic in the most subtle, beautiful ways. She brought up old memories while we ate dinner. "Remember our trip to Savannah?" she asked, twirling her fork like we were some romantic movie couple. "That tiny bookstore, the one where the old man gave you that terrible poetry book?" I nodded slowly. She laughed, but it sounded thin. God, we were so broke back then. But happy, right? Still, I didn't answer. That silence. It scared her more than yelling ever could. That night, she climbed into bed early, closer than usual. Her leg touched mine. Her breathing was soft. "You've been quiet lately," she whispered. "I've had a lot on my mind," I said without looking at her. She paused, then asked carefully, "Anything we should talk about?" I turned to her then. "Just for a moment. Do you want to talk?" Her eyes flicked toward mine. There was fear in them. Just a flicker, but it was there. She didn't expect me to turn the question around. And she sure as hell didn't want to open the door to anything that might be hiding behind that silence. So she did what she always did. She smiled. "Not if you're tired," she said. "You can tell me whenever." I nodded. "Thanks." Then I turned off the light and faced the wall. The next few days were a chess match. Every move I made was careful, calculated. I started keeping strange hours, staying out later than normal, leaving my phone in other rooms. She noticed. She asked questions, but I never gave her full answers. She was used to predictable Ellery, boring, sweet, spineless Ellery. Now she was dealing with someone else, someone watching her every move and saying nothing. She checked my phone one night. I heard her pick it up while I was asleep. She scrolled for nearly 10 minutes. I didn't even bother locking it. I had nothing to hide. That's what terrified her most. There was nothing in my texts. No clue. No slip. She couldn't trace what I knew. And that's when she started slipping. She overcorrected again. Brought home my favorite snacks. Suggested a weekend getaway, just the two of us. She even tried to initiate something physical, which felt like watching someone imitate affection from a YouTube tutorial. Her hands were cold. Her breath was shallow. She was performing again. I pulled away. She looked at me like she didn't recognize who I was. And maybe she didn't. Because I wasn't reacting anymore. I wasn't defending myself. I wasn't playing the part she wrote for me. And that scared her more than anything. But the breaking point came when I asked a single question at dinner. So, what would you do if I cheated on you? Her fork paused midair. She blinked. Slowly. Excuse me. I tilted my head. Just a hypothetical. Would you forgive me? Or would it be over? She stared at me for a long time. Where is this coming from? I shrugged. You said we should talk more. She put down her fork, her hand trembling just a little. I think I'd want to know why. What led to it? If it meant anything. I nodded. That's reasonable. Then I stood up, cleared my plate, and walked into the kitchen without another word. Behind me, I heard her whisper, Ellery, what's going on? And I almost turned around. Almost told her everything I knew. Almost threw it all on the table and asked her to explain every lie, every cover-up, every text and sigh and hug meant for someone else. But I didn't, because I wasn't done watching her unravel. And the final move was still coming. The last move wasn't some explosion. No screaming match. No thrown glasses or slammed doors. I didn't destroy her in front of our friends or expose her to her family. That would have been easy, satisfying in the short term. But I'd spent too long being the passive husband, the harmless one, the background character in her story, to trade that all in for drama. I wanted dignity. She came home that Sunday to the smell of dinner. I'd made roasted chicken, garlic mashed potatoes, and her favorite salad, the one I hadn't cooked since our 3rd anniversary. She walked in the door, took a breath, and her whole face lit up with cautious surprise. Wow, she said. This looks incredible. I smiled and poured her wine. Figured we deserved a proper night in. She sat. We ate. She asked me questions, and I answered them, fully, freely, like a man who had nothing left to protect. Halfway through dessert, she finally said it. I feel like I've lost you lately. You've been distant. Different. I looked at her, really looked at her, and said, that's because I finally caught up. She blinked. Caught up to what? To who you really are, I said softly. And what this marriage has actually become. She went still. Her hand hovered over her wine glass. Ellery, I know about Dax, I said. Calm. No edge in my voice. I know about Syra. I know about the exit strategy note on your tablet. I know about the spa lie. I know about the Friday meeting. Her eyes didn't blink. They just filled. She tried to speak, but no sound came. Her mouth opened, then closed. And that's when I leaned forward and said the words she never expected. I'm not going to ruin you. She shook her head, silent tears beginning to fall. I'm not going to out you to your family. I'm not going to post receipts online. I'm not going to hurt you the way you hurt me. Because I'm done being that man, the one waiting for you to choose me. The one who thinks love means staying quiet. Her voice cracked. Ellery, you were right, I interrupted. We did grow apart. But not because of life or stress or any of the things you rehearsed. You grew apart because you stopped seeing me. But someone else will. Someone who doesn't need to pretend. And as for you, you can be whoever you want to be now. You're free. I stood up, handed her a folder. Inside was a single page, the signed separation agreement. Everything was already arranged. No legal ambush. No petty alimony fight. I wasn't taking her house, or her name, or her peace. Just my time. My life. My chance to start again. She broke. Not the theatrical kind. Not begging. Not angry. She just sobbed, quietly, into her hands. Because I hadn't given her the ending she expected, the ending she prepared for. She didn't get to play the victim. She didn't get a villain. She got something worse. Grace. And 3 months later, I sat in a quiet cafe with no ring on my hand and a new number in my phone from someone who'd smiled at me in line. Someone who looked me in the eye, blinked twice when I spoke, asked questions, and waited for the answers. And for the first time in a long, long time, I felt seen.